My name is Ethan Cole. I work night patrol at an old training range the Army shut down years ago. It's not a heroic job. It's cold coffee, buzzing radios, and walking the same cracked road until sunrise. Most nights are quiet. Too quiet. Last Tuesday felt the same. Wind in the grass. Static on the radio. Nothing out of place. Then I saw him. A lone soldier standing near the tree line. Full uniform. Helmet on. Boots clean. I checked the roster. No one else was assigned that sector. I called out anyway. He turned and saluted using a hand signal. The Army stopped teaching 20 years ago. That was when my radio crackled. Not with my call sign, but with a name I'd seen once before. On a memorial plaque. From a soldier who never came back from night patrol. Night patrol isn't heroic. It's boredom, stale coffee, and counting minutes until sunrise. It's walking the same loop again and again, boots crunching over gravel that hasn't been replaced in decades. The training range used to matter once. Back when recruits filled the barracks and tracer rounds lit up the hills. Now it's just land the Army hasn't decided what to do with yet. Most of the buildings are still standing. Barely. There's an old watchtower near the south fence, its ladder rusted halfway through. A supply shed with doors chained shut, even though no one remembers what's inside. And long strips of cracked asphalt where tanks once rolled, leaving grooves so deep the road never healed. That road is my patrol, or what's left of it. I usually start at the checkpoint just after midnight. The guard shack smells like dust and burnt coffee. Someone always leaves the pot on too long. We joke about it, say it's strong enough to wake the dead. The radio sits in the corner, an old AM unit that hums even when no one's talking. Static comes and goes like breathing. Every now and then it picks up stations. It shouldn't country music from 2 states away, or a preacher yelling about damnation. My partner that week was Ramirez. Good guy, quiet. The kind who laughs once, then goes silent for an hour. We traded shifts, traded bad jokes. Complained about the cold. About how night patrol messes with your head if you let it. Nothing out here but raccoons and ghosts, he said once. Then he laughed. But he didn't look at me when he did. The old-timers were worse. Guys who'd been guarding this place since before I enlisted. They had a way of talking around things never straight through them. On my first night, one of them handed me the keys and said, "Stay on the road." Another added, "Don't cut through the trees." Then the oldest one, a man who never smiled, said quietly, "And whatever you hear, don't answer back." They didn't explain. They never do. A few nights later, I heard about Marker 17. Not officially. Not in any briefing or map. It came up over coffee. Someone mentioned it like a joke. Don't go past Marker 17 at night. I asked why. The room went quiet. Ramirez shrugged. Someone changed the subject. The radio crackled loud enough to make everyone flinch. Later, I checked the map. Marker 17 was there, a simple sign on the edge of the trees where the road narrowed. Nothing special. No warning labels. No red tape. Just another post in the dirt. That night, when I drove the route alone, I slowed down as I passed it. The forest beyond looked darker somehow. Not deeper. Not thicker. Just wrong. I told myself it was fatigue. Lack of sleep. Too much bad coffee. Still, I didn't cross it. Because rules like that don't come from nowhere. And places like this, old bases, forgotten roads, training grounds soaked in memory, they don't stay empty just because people leave. They remember who walked them. And sometimes, they remember how those people died. I told myself it was nothing. That's what soldiers do. We explain things. We label fear as fatigue, and we call dread stress. The first sign came the night after marker 17. I was doing the loop alone, headlights sweeping the broken asphalt. The forest tight on both sides like a corridor. The air had that thin winter bite. The kind that turns your breath into smoke and makes every sound feel sharper than it should. Half a mile before the marker, I saw prints in the dirt shoulder. Boot prints. Fresh. I pulled over, stepped out, and aimed my flashlight down at them. They weren't mine. Different tread, wider heel, and they were wrong. Not because they were strange, because they were incomplete. A trail of left footprints, one after another. Perfect spacing. Perfect direction. As if someone had been walking with one leg. I followed them for maybe 20 feet, expecting the right prints to appear. They never did. The left prints just kept going. Straight into the grass, then into the tree line. And then they stopped. Clean. Like someone had lifted up into the air. I stood there longer than I should have. The beam of my flashlight jittered with my breathing. I told myself the obvious thing: an animal. A prank. A bad angle. Anything. Just stress. Back in the shack, Ramirez raised an eyebrow when I mentioned it. Maybe the guy hopped, he said. Then he smirked like he was trying to make it a joke. But his eyes didn't match his mouth. The next night, the temperature dropped so fast it felt personal. One minute the air was cold. The next, it was ice. My dashboard read 32 degrees. Then 28. Then 21. In less than a minute. I rolled my window down to check if the sensor was glitching. The cold hit my face like a slap. Not normal cold. Not weather cold. This was the kind of cold you feel in a freezer aisle when the door's been left open. Dry. Dead. My radio hissed. Then clicked. Then went quiet. At first, I thought it died. Then I heard a tone. A long, steady beep, the kind you hear before someone talks on an old military net. I sat up straighter. The screen on the radio wasn't displaying our channel. It was showing a frequency we didn't use. A frequency I didn't recognize. And then a voice came through. Faint, buried in static. But disciplined. Like it had been trained. Check your spacing. It wasn't my call sign. It wasn't Ramirez. It wasn't anyone I'd ever heard. I lifted the mic without thinking, then froze. Because I remembered the rule. Whatever you hear, don't answer back. So I didn't. I stared at the radio until the voice faded, replaced by breathing static again. When I finally exhaled, I realized I'd been holding my breath the entire time. Just wind, I told myself. Just interference. But wind doesn't use military cadence. 2 nights later, I saw him again. The soldier. It was near the same stretch of road, where the trees curve in and the asphalt dips like a shallow wound. I spotted movement in the edge of my headlights, a figure stepping from shadow to shadow. I stopped the vehicle. The engine idled, low and uneasy. I got out slowly, keeping my flashlight down at first, like I didn't want to scare a deer. Base security, I called. My voice sounded smaller than it should have in the open night. Identify yourself. He didn't flinch. Didn't react. Just stood there, half in the grass, half in the dark. When I raised the light, I saw details that made my stomach tighten. His uniform was clean. Not fresh from the dryer clean. Museum clean. The pattern was older, the cut, the fabric, the way the pockets sat. Early 2000s issue. the kind you see in old deployment photos. And the patch on his shoulder a unit insignia I recognized from a plaque in the admin building. A unit that had rotated out of here before I even graduated high school. He turned his head toward me. Slow. Measured. His face was mostly shadow under the helmet, but I could see enough to know he was young. Early 20s, maybe. Too young to look that tired. He took one step forward, then another, and my radio crackled again, not from the shack, not from Ramirez, from him. A faint burst of static came from somewhere near his chest, like he had a handset clipped to his vest. But I couldn't see any modern gear. No body cam. No reflective tape. No glow sticks. Just old kit. Old straps. Old rules. Cole, the radio said. My last name. My blood went cold. Nobody on that base used my last name over the air unless it was official. And nobody was supposed to be on that frequency. I swallowed. Forced myself to speak like everything was normal. Who are you? He didn't answer. He lifted his hand and saluted. Sharp. Precise. Then he held the salute a second too long. Like he was waiting for me to return it. And in that stretched out second, I noticed something that made my skin prickle. My flashlight was on him. The beam hit his uniform, hit his helmet, hit the dirt beside his boots. But it didn't reflect. Not the way it should. No shine off the fabric. No glint off metal. No harsh edges. Light just died on him. Like it was being swallowed. I stepped closer without meaning to. One slow step. Then another. The air around him was colder than the road behind me. Not by a little. By a lot. My breath came out in thick clouds, and his didn't. I told myself it was nothing. That's what soldiers do. We explain things. But when my flashlight passed through his shadow and didn't cast one back, my hands started shaking. They weren't ghosts. Ghosts don't hunt. They don't coordinate. They don't repeat the same pattern night after night like a training exercise. Whatever followed them learned to wear their faces. I didn't understand that the first time I saw the soldier. I just knew something about him didn't fit. He stood at attention like the world still had rules. He saluted like he expected the same old response. And when my flashlight refused to bounce back off him, a part of my brain started screaming that I was looking at a mistake. I drove back to the guard shack with my hands locked on the wheel. I told myself the same thing soldiers always tell themselves when reality starts bending. Just stress. Just wind. Just fatigue. Ramirez was on break when I returned. He looked up from his phone, saw my face, and didn't ask if I was okay. He asked what I saw. That's how I knew he'd seen it too. Or something like it. I didn't want to talk about it out loud. Not at first. Because saying a thing makes it real. And if it's real, then it can follow you home. But Ramirez leaned in close and kept his voice low, like we were sharing contraband. You ever hear about the secret exercise? He asked. The one they don't put in the history briefing. I stared at him. He nodded toward the back office, where the old-timers kept their paperwork. Then he stood up, locked the shack door, and pulled a battered folder from a cabinet that should have been empty. The tilt. It was stained with coffee rings and dust. The label had been peeled off. Inside was a single page laminated, creased, and worn like it had been passed hand to hand for years. At the top, in block letters, it read Night Patrol Protocol Range Sector. Keep this official copy off the radio. Below that was a list. 6 rules. Not policies. Not guidelines. Rules. Ramirez tapped the page with his finger. His hand shook, just a little. They told me these on my first shift, he said. I thought it was hazing. Then I watched a guy break Rule 2. He swallowed like the memory had a taste. We're not telling you this to scare you, he added. We're telling you because out here, fear is the only thing that keeps you alive. I took the page, and I read. Rule 1. Never speak to a soldier who doesn't answer roll call. At first it sounded simple. Common sense, even. If someone's not on the roster, you report it. You don't chat. But the rule wasn't about authority. It was about recognition. Roll call is identity. Name, unit, rank. A tether that says, I belong to the living. Ramirez explained it the way an instructor explains a weapon malfunction. Calm. Precise. Like panic wastes time. If you speak first, he said, it learns your voice. I laughed once. A sharp, ugly sound. Not because it was funny, because it was too insane to absorb. Ramirez didn't laugh back. He told me about a guard named Peterson. 2 years ago. Night shift. Same road. Same tree line. Peterson saw a soldier walking along the shoulder like he was returning from a long patrol. Peterson pulled over and called out, friendly. Hey, you all right? Need a ride back? The soldier didn't answer. Just kept walking. Peterson got out anyway. Jogged up beside him. Tried again. Hello? You hear me? And the soldier stopped. Turned slowly. Saluted. Then, in a voice that sounded like radio static shaped into words, it said, say it again. Peterson, confused, asked what he meant. The soldier smiled. Too wide. Too patient. And Peterson realized the smile wasn't aimed at him. It was aimed at the sound of his voice. Like a dog hearing a whistle. He made it back to the shack barely. Mouth bleeding. Eyes unfocused. Like he'd been screaming for hours. After that, he couldn't speak above a whisper without gagging. And whenever he did talk, his words came out doubled. As if someone else was speaking a half-second behind him, copying every syllable. They transferred him off the range. Officially stress leave. Unofficially, they didn't want it learning more. Ramirez leaned closer. That's Rule 1, he said. If it doesn't answer roll call, don't give it anything to copy. I read the next line and felt my stomach tighten. Rule 2, if you hear boots behind you, don't turn around unless your name is called twice. We all hear things at night. Branches. Animals. Wind. The mind filling in blanks. But boots are different. Boots have rhythm. Boots have intention. Ramirez told me the range had a sound when it was empty, and a different sound when it wasn't. The first time you hear boots behind you, he said, you'll swear it's one of us messing with you. He glanced toward the window. The darkness beyond it looked like a solid wall. That's how it gets you, he continued. It makes you act like a human. Because turning around is instinct. It's politeness. It's the need to identify a threat. But out there, turning around is permission. Ramirez told me about the guy who broke Rule 2. Not Peterson. Someone else. A young guard named Lewis. New, cocky, eager to prove he wasn't scared of campfire stories. Lewis heard boots behind him on the road near marker 17. Slow. Heavy. Matching his pace exactly. He called out, joking. "Real funny. Knock it off." No answer. Just boots. So Lewis spun around fast, ready to curse out whoever was following him. But no one was there. Just darkness and the cold smell of wet dirt. Lewis laughed, relieved, and turned forward again. And that's when he saw the footprints. Not behind him. In front of him. A line of prints had appeared on the road in the exact shape of his own stride, as if something had been walking inside his shadow. He ran. Back to the shack. Pounding on the door. Screaming that something was chasing him. They pulled him inside. Locked the door. And watched his reflection in the glass window behind him. Because the thing didn't enter the shack. It entered his reflection. Lewis started to calm down, then froze, eyes locked on the glass. His reflection didn't mirror him anymore. It smiled when he didn't. It blinked out of sync. And then, slow as a sunrise, it raised a hand and saluted. Lewis screamed. His real body screamed. But the reflection didn't move. It just watched. A week later, Lewis was still alive, technically. He ate. He slept. But he refused to look at glass. Refused to look at water. Refused to look at anything that might show him himself. Because he said, every time he blinked, he saw someone else wearing his face. I swallowed hard and looked back at the page. My mouth felt dry. Rule 3: old unit patches mean they're not human anymore. That one felt like superstition until I remembered the patch on the soldier's shoulder. A unit I'd only seen on a memorial plaque. Ramirez said, the range had absorbed too many stories. Too many rituals. Too many men walking the same path with the same fear in their lungs. When a unit patch is old, he said, it means the body wearing it doesn't belong to now. He told me to watch for details that didn't match the present. Old helmets. Old webbing. Outdated salutes. Uniforms too clean, too perfect like costumes. Because those weren't soldiers. They were echoes dressed up in fabric. And the thing behind them liked old uniforms because old uniforms came with old memories. Fresh trauma. Fresh fear. The kind it could feed on. He said something that made my skin crawl. It doesn't copy the man. It copies what killed him. I didn't understand at first. Then I did. A soldier dies scared, exhausted, confused in the dark, and that last feeling becomes a pattern. A loop. A scent trail. The thing follows that scent. Then wears it. I kept reading. My fingers felt numb around the laminated page. Rule 4. If they ask you to follow, they're trying to finish their last patrol. That one sounded almost sad. Almost human. Ramirez shook his head. Don't romanticize it, he said. It's not a ghost looking for closure. He told me the secret exercise happened 20 years ago. A night movement drill. No lights. No outside radio. Just squads moving through the range like it was a hostile zone. Something went wrong. Officially, the report blamed weather. A sudden fog. A miscommunication. A training accident. But the old-timers said the fog wasn't weather. It moved like a living thing. It separated men from each other. It muffled screams. A whole squad went missing. Not lost. Missing. They found the bodies later scattered, positioned like they'd been placed. Some were saluting. Some were facing the wrong direction. And every single one had mud packed into their mouths like someone didn't want their last words getting out. After that, the range shut down. But the patrols didn't stop. Because the men who died were still out there, walking the route they never finished. And the thing that followed them learned a trick. It would send one of them to you. A soldier in an old uniform, quiet and disciplined. He would approach like he needed help, like he was lost. And then he would ask, in a voice that felt too flat to be real, "Come with me." If you followed, you weren't helping him. You were stepping into the loop. You were becoming part of the unfinished patrol. Ramirez told me a story about a mechanic who got curious. Not even security. Just a guy who worked on generators. He heard someone calling from beyond marker 17. A calm voice. Not a scream. Not panic. Just command. Over here. He followed, thinking someone was hurt. His flashlight beam bounced through the trees, catching old rusted signs and scraps of barbed wire. He found a soldier standing in the fog. The soldier looked straight at him and said, "We're short one. Follow." The mechanic hesitated, then stepped forward, because that's what people do when they think someone needs help. He disappeared into the trees. They searched at sunrise. Dogs. Drones. Nothing. But 3 nights later, the guards heard boots behind them on the road. And a new voice on the old frequency one that sounded like the mechanic trying to speak through water. Rule 4 wasn't sad. It was bait. My eyes moved down the page. The next rule made my throat close. Rule 5: never cross marker 17 after midnight. Ramirez said, the marker wasn't just a sign. It was a seam. A tear in the routine. A line where the range stopped being abandoned land and started being something else. Midnight is when the loop resets, he said. Before midnight, you're still in our world. After midnight, you're in theirs. I asked what theirs meant. Ramirez didn't answer immediately. He looked at the window again. Then at the door. Then back to me. The secret drill happened at midnight, he said finally. That was the start time. That was the last time anyone saw them alive. So midnight wasn't just a time. It was a memorial. A trigger. Crossing marker 17 after midnight meant you were stepping into that same start point. Replaying the same mistake. Offering yourself as a substitute. The range liked substitutes. The loop demanded them. I stared at the final line. My hands were cold now, even inside the shack. Rule 6: if you see the thing behind the soldier, close your eyes and count to 30. That was the one that made my stomach drop. Because it admitted something I hadn't wanted to name. There was something behind him. Not metaphorically. Not spiritually. Physically. Ramirez said you usually didn't see it at first. Your brain refused. It edited it out, like a nightmare you wake up from and forget. But sometimes if the flashlight angle hit just right. Or, if you looked too long, you'd catch a shape behind the soldier. A second outline. Too tall. Too thin. Standing where no person could stand without being seen. And if you saw it clearly, it saw you clearly. That's why you close your eyes. Not because you're hiding. Because looking is an invitation. A handshake. A contract. Counting to 30 was a way to survive the moment your instincts would kill you. 30 seconds of refusing to confirm what you saw. 30 seconds of denying it the satisfaction of recognition. I sat there with the laminated page in my hands and felt something shift inside me. A cold understanding settling into place. The soldier I'd met wasn't the danger. He was the uniform. The delivery system. The real threat was whatever trained itself to move like a man. To salute like a man. To speak your name through an old military frequency. Whatever followed them learned to wear their faces. Ramirez took the page back gently, like it was fragile. "You can survive this," he said. "But only if you treat every instinct like a trap." Outside, the radio hummed. Static breathing in the dark. And somewhere beyond marker 17, Boots kept walking steady, disciplined, like a patrol that never ended. We lasted 3 nights after the rules became real. 3 nights of doing everything exactly right. Staying on the road. Not cutting through the trees. Not answering the radio when the frequency shifted. Not speaking first. Not turning around. It felt like walking through a minefield with your hands in your pockets. Every instinct screaming at you to look, to react, to confirm what you heard and forcing yourself not to. Then the range did what it always does. It waited for a weakness. It found ours in a man named Harlan. Harlan wasn't like Ramirez. He wasn't quiet or careful. He was the kind of guy who treated superstition like a personal insult. He'd been on base security longer than me, and he hated the idea that a patch of trees and a rusted marker could scare anyone. Ghost stories, he called it. Old-timer nonsense. The night it happened, we were doing a 2-vehicle sweep. Ramirez and I in the lead. Harlan behind us, riding solo, radioing complaints every few minutes. The wind was up. The trees hissed. And the old AM radio in my dash kept catching that same faint tone, the one that sounded like a military net opening. I didn't answer. I kept my eyes on the road. Marker 17 came into view, pale in the headlights. The forest beyond it looked darker than the rest, like it absorbed light instead of reflecting it. "Slow it down," Ramirez muttered. His hands were tight on the dashboard, like he was bracing for impact. We stopped 10 yards short of the marker. Standard. We'd done it that way since the rules started feeling like oxygen. Then Harlan's voice snapped over the radio. "What? Are we doing the spooky line now?" Ramirez didn't respond. Neither did I. Harlan laughed, a hard laugh that didn't belong out there. "Hey," he said, "I see your boyfriend again. The antique soldier." My throat went dry. I aimed my flashlight out the window. And there he was. Standing just inside the tree line. Uniform too clean. Helmet low. Body still. He didn't move like a person waiting. He moved like a signpost. Like something placed there. Ramirez whispered, "Don't speak." Harlan ignored him. He opened his door and stepped out, boots crunching on gravel, voice loud and confident like volume could protect him. "Hey," Harlan called. "Private." "You lost." The soldier turned his head. Slow. Measured. Ramirez grabbed my sleeve. His eyes were wide. "He's not answering roll call," he breathed. "Don't you say a word." I didn't. I couldn't. My tongue felt stuck to the roof of my mouth. Harlan walked closer. Too close. "Name and unit," he demanded, like he was back in basic training. "Answer me." The soldier didn't reply. He just raised his hand and saluted. Sharp. Perfect. A salute from 20 years ago. Harlan snorted. "Oh, you got jokes." Then, Like an idiot, he did the one thing the rules said never to do. He said the soldier's name. Not a guess. Not a nickname. The actual name. Clear. Confident. Like he'd pulled it from the air. Carter, Harlan called. Specialist Carter, right? Ramirez went pale. I felt my stomach drop. Because the plaque in the admin building. I remembered it now. One of the names. One of the dead, Carter. The soldier reacted for the first time. His shoulders eased, almost grateful. Like the name unlocked a mechanism. Like a latch releasing. The radio in my dash crackled. Not our channel. The old frequency. A voice came through layered, overlapping, like multiple mouths sharing one throat. Carter present. The soldier took a step forward. Then he spoke. Not with lips. Not with breath. With static. Follow. Harlan smiled like he'd won. Like he'd proven something. He glanced back at us. See? He said. Just a guy. Then he turned and walked past marker 17. After midnight. The moment his boot crossed the line, the air changed. The sound of the wind cut out like someone muted the world. Even the insects stopped. Everything went flat and heavy, as if we'd driven underwater. My headlights dimmed. Not flickered, dimmed. Like the darkness was drinking them. Ramirez cursed under his breath. Harlan, he shouted, breaking Rule 1, because panic doesn't care about rules. Harlan, get back here! Harlan didn't turn. He kept walking, drawn forward like a compass needle. The soldier moved beside him now, not leading, not following, matching him. Boot to boot, and behind the soldier. I saw it, not clearly, not at first. Just a second outline in the dark. Too tall, too thin. A shape that didn't fit the trees. It moved in small jerks, like a puppet being pulled by a hand that didn't know the joints. Ramirez whispered, "Close your eyes." I tried. I couldn't. My body refused. Because Harlan had just stepped into the trees, and the soldier followed him like a shadow with a rank. Ramirez jumped out of the truck. He ran to the marker, stopping short like the line was electrified. "Harlan!" he yelled again. "Don't follow him, don't." Harlan's voice floated back from the darkness. "Calm, too calm." "Come on," he said. "Just a few steps. You gotta see this." Then, from deeper in the trees, another voice repeated it. Same words, different tone. And then another. And another. A stack of voices, layered like echoes in a tunnel, all saying the same invitation. "Come on, just a few steps. You gotta see this." My radio clicked. The old frequency opened again. Unit moving, spacing. Then a sound like something wet being dragged across metal. Ramirez backed away from the marker, eyes wide and bright with terror. He looked at me like he was trying to decide whether saving Harlan was worth dying for. I didn't have an answer. Because in that moment, the soldier in the trees turned his head toward us. And smiled. It wore his uniform. But when it smiled there were too many teeth. And none of them were human. They weren't arranged like a person's teeth. They were layered, uneven, like broken white nails pressed into flesh. The smile didn't move the face the right way. It tugged its skin like the skin was loose. Like it didn't belong. And behind that smile, the thing behind him shifted closer. I finally saw what my brain had been refusing to draw. No face. Not blank. Not shadowed. No face at all, just a smooth, stretched surface where eyes and nose should have been, as if someone had wiped the features away with a thumb. And yet it was looking at us. Because the air around us tightened, and my lungs forgot how to breathe. Ramirez grabbed my arm and yanked me back toward the truck. "Move," he hissed. Now. We got in. I hit the gas. The tires spun on gravel like the road had turned to sand. Behind us, the trees erupted with movement. Not footsteps. Not running. A scraping glide. Jerky. Wrong. Like something tall trying to learn how legs work. My headlights shook as the truck bounced over the grooves. The road blurred. Marker 17 vanished behind us. And then, boots. Right behind the truck, matching our speed. Too close to be human. I didn't look. I couldn't. The radio screamed with static. A burst of voices overlapped. Carter present. Carter present. Carter present. Then Harlan's voice cut through. Ethan, he said. My hands clamped tighter on the wheel. My name hadn't been called twice. Once. Just once. Ramirez shouted, "Don't turn around." I stared straight ahead, eyes burning, refusing to blink. Harlan's voice came again. Closer. Like he was sitting in the back seat. Ethan, help me. Then the second call came. Ethan. Same voice. But wrong. Too flat. Too clean. Ramirez sucked in a breath. His fingers dug into my shoulder. Count, he whispered. 30. Don't blink. I started counting out loud. 1, 2, 3. The radio went dead. Not static. Not hum. Dead silence. At 10, the temperature in the cab dropped. Frost bloomed on the inside of the windshield like lace. At 15, something tapped the roof. Once. Twice. Like knuckles. At 20, the smell hit wet earth and old pennies, like blood sunk into dirt. At 25, a breath brushed my ear. Not warm. Not cold. Just present. At 30, Ramirez shouted, "Now go!" I slammed the accelerator. The truck lurched forward like it broke free of a current. The boots behind us stopped as if someone had cut the string. We didn't stop driving until we hit the floodlights near the main checkpoint. Only then did we look back. The road was empty. No soldier. No Harlan. No footprints. Just the grooves in the asphalt filled with dark water that hadn't been there before. Ramirez stared at it, shaking. Harlan's gone, he said. Not as a guess. As a fact. I tried the radio. Nothing. No hum. No static. Like the range had swallowed the sound itself. And somewhere in that silence I understood the worst part. Harlan didn't just disappear. He was still out there, walking an unfinished patrol with something behind him, learning his voice. Officially, nothing happened. That's what the report says. Equipment malfunction. Signal interference. Human error compounded by stress and poor visibility. Harlan's name appears once in the document. Then it disappears. There's no mention of Marker 17. No mention of the old frequency. No mention of the voices. By sunrise, the road had been washed clean. The grooves in the asphalt were still there, but the dark water was gone. No footprints. No signs of a struggle. Search and recovery came through in the morning. Dogs. Drones. Men who asked careful questions and wrote careful notes. They searched the trees past Marker 17. Only during daylight. Only for a few hours. Then the operation was quietly suspended. Officially, Harlan walked off post. Unofficially, everyone knew better. Ramirez didn't say much after that night. He kept showing up for his shifts, but something in him had folded inward. Like a man who'd learned the cost of looking too closely. 2 weeks later, he transferred out. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a number. The shack got quieter after that. They reassigned me to solo patrols. Same route. Same hours. Different rules. The laminated page never went back into the cabinet. It stayed with me. Folded. Worn soft at the edges from being handled too often. I follow every rule now. All 6 of them. I don't speak first. I don't turn around. I don't cross Marker 17 after midnight. And when the radio shifts, I let it breathe. The range is still active. That's the part people don't understand. They didn't shut it down. They never do. Too much paperwork. Too many ghosts buried in budgets and training schedules. So the patrols continue. New guards rotate in. Old guards rotate out. And the rules get passed down quietly, like something shameful, like a family secret. Sometimes I catch new guys laughing about it, calling it hazing, calling it campfire nonsense. I don't correct them. Fear works better when it's earned. Every once in a while, the radio crackles on the old frequency. Just for a second. Not enough to be sure. Enough to be afraid. I've learned the difference. The soldier still appears. Not every night. Not even every week. Always near the trees. Always in an old uniform. Always patient. I don't look at his face anymore. Sometimes I hear boots behind me on the road. Perfectly spaced. Perfectly matched to my stride. I don't turn around. Sometimes I hear my name. Once, I keep walking. Because I know what the second call sounds like. I've learned something else too. Something the rules don't say out loud. The thing out there doesn't just hunt. It waits. It studies. It memorizes. It's learning how we sound when we're tired. When we're scared. When we're alone. Harlan wasn't the first to disappear. He won't be the last. The patrol doesn't need bodies. It needs replacements. Men to walk the road. Men to keep the loop moving. Sometimes, late at night, I think I hear Harlan's voice. Not screaming. Not begging. Just calm. Professional. Like he's doing his job. And I understand the cruelest part of it all. Harlan didn't die that night. Not really. He finished his patrol. He just never came back from it. Officially, nothing happened. The report says equipment malfunction. But every night when I pass marker 17, I hear boots matching my pace. And a voice behind me saying, "Patrol's not finished yet."